Okay, we're jumping straight into the deep end today. Zero fluff, because your grade boundaries are on the line and we really need to fix a massive trap. If you're sitting for the Cambridge IGCSE Computer Science 0478 exam, you know the pressure is on. But what you might not realize is that the way you're studying right now might actually be costing you marks. This explainer is your complete strategy guide to decrypting the exam, and we're starting right now with a surprisingly common pitfall.
Look at this deceptively simple question pulled straight from page 7 of the official workbook. It asks you to identify 3 of the different items, other than software, that make up a computer system. I mean, it looks incredibly straightforward, right? But this is exactly where unprepared students bleed marks. It is a total hidden trap.
See, if you write down a generic everyday response, like saying the screen, the mouse, and the stuff inside, you're getting absolutely 0 marks. The examiner literally cannot give you credit for vague everyday terminology. Contrast that with the precise answer: hardware, input devices, output devices, and internal components. This precise Cambridge-safe technical answer aligns perfectly with the mark scheme. So the main takeaway here: your everyday vocabulary has got to be upgraded to exam-specific technical vocabulary.
Let's get into Section 1, Why Normal Revision Fails, and specifically the command word trap.
The real reason normal rote learning fails you in the exam room is that it doesn't teach you how to decode the examiner-specific command words: state, define, describe, explain, compare, evaluate, identify, demonstrate. Each one of these words dictates an entirely different required response. Honestly, if you treat an evaluate question like an identify question, you're practically guaranteeing a fail for that prompt, even if your underlying technical knowledge is completely flawless. Remember, 1 mark normally needs 1 distinct technical point. If you just repeat the same idea because you didn't quite grasp the command word, you get nothing. So you might be wondering, what is the single examiner clue that changes your answer completely? In just a moment, I'm going to reveal the hidden detail required for full marks, the one secret that unlocks the examiner's logic. But first, we need to set up the framework that's going to make that clue completely obvious to you. Moving on to Section 2, the Top Band Answer Framework. Consider this your mark scheme masterclass. To lock in those marks, you must methodically build your response using these 4 steps. Step 1, state the concept cleanly. Step 2, provide the evidence or data straight out of the scenario. Step 3, apply scientific or computational reasoning to explain how it works. And Step 4, finish with exact examiner wording. You're moving from the core concept, applying evidence, adding your reasoning, and landing the plane with the exact terminology the examiner is hunting for.
All right, Section 3, Harder Scenario Applications. Let's apply this framework to some actual code.
Let's escalate the difficulty. When applying this to Paper 2 topics, say an examiner asks about tasks repeated many times in an algorithm, you can't just write, "It makes the code shorter." No way. Using our framework, you explicitly state the concept, procedures, and functions. You provide the mechanism. They are defined once and called many times. And you use the exact wording. They use local or global parameters to drastically reduce the size of a program. Doing this proves to the examiner you actually understand high-level programming structure. And when it comes to testing those programs, your answer has to be equally rigorous. Take boundary data. It's specifically used to test the extreme edges of a system, which is totally distinct from normal and abnormal data. To secure marks here, your answer must explicitly distinguish between normal data, abnormal data, boundary data, and extreme data to prove the solution's robustness. If you just shrug and write test data checks if it works, you get 0. You absolutely must use the specific terms. Which brings us to Section 4, the ultimate boss. We are talking about Boolean logic and truth tables. Let's look at a classic scenario from page 70 of the workbook. You've got sensors A, B, and C feeding into 3 different logic circuits to produce intermediate outputs X, Y, and Z. Those then feed into a final circuit for your ultimate output Q. When you're faced with binary inputs running from 0, 0, 0 all the way down to 1, 1, 1, you cannot just try to guess that final column. You have to map out every single intermediate step.
The mark scheme literally demands that you show your working area clearly. You have to sequentially trace inputs A, B, and C, then calculate those intermediate outputs X, Y, and Z. Only then do you determine the final output Q. Processing the logic gates sequentially, rather than just guessing the final output, is the only way to make sure you don't drop a vital mark in some massive cascading error. Show every step.
Let's take a quick breather for Section 5, the interactive checkpoint. Let's see if you can spot the fatal flaw.
So read this actual student answer. Boundary data is used to verify inputs for the new database. Take a second. Apply our 4-step framework. Can you figure out why an examiner's red pen would instantly give this 0 marks? Pay close attention to the specific terminology they used.
Well, did you catch it? The correction here reveals a massive misunderstanding of technical terms. First off, boundary data relates to validation, not verification. Validation checks if data is reasonable and actually follows the rules. Verification simply checks if copied or entered data is perfectly correct, like typing your password in twice to confirm it. By using the word verify, the student completely ruined the answer. And secondly, they totally ignored the constraints of whatever scenario the exam actually provided, giving a super generic, weak response.
And that leads us to a golden rule straight from the examiner guidance. Scenario questions must use the scenario nouns and constraints. Generic answers are weaker. Listen, to secure top band marks, you must apply your answer specifically to the actual nouns provided in the question. If the question is about a greenhouse temperature sensor, you do not just say the sensor, you say the greenhouse temperature sensor. Specificity is your best friend here.
All right, Section 6, Resolving the Curiosity Loop. It's time to reveal that missing clue.
The ultimate examiner clue is simply this. You must marry the required action of the command word with the highly specific constraints and nouns of the realistic scenario provided in the prompt. If the command word says explain, and the scenario is a banking cybersecurity system, your answer has got to provide the mechanism of how cybersecurity works, specifically using banking terms like customer accounts or financial transactions. You fuse the command word action with the scenario nouns. Boom! That is exactly how you unlock top marks.
You now have the ultimate framework to secure top marks on your papers. But there is a second massive trap waiting for you, specifically regarding data transmission and cybersecurity questions in the examiner reports. To discover what that mistake is and how to avoid it, you'll want to click over and watch the next explainer right now. And definitely remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. But before you take your next practice paper, I want you to honestly ask yourself, are you just writing down what you know, or are you actually answering what the examiner is asking?